In York, South Carolina, on East Liberty Street, stands the historic building Trinity M.E. Church South. The church was organized in 1824 by Reverend Williams Gassaway and the church's later pastor, Joseph Holmes. It is one of the oldest M.E. churches in York County and was originally constructed on a street known today as College Street. In addition, the church hosted the county's first Sunday school in 1829, which was organized by James Jeffries. The church's cemetery, located on 19 College Street, is known as the Trinity Methodist Church Burial Grounds, but is more commonly referred to as the Old Settlers Cemetery. The first person buried in the cemetery was 41-year-old Martha Patsy Huddleston Fox, who passed away on November the 9th of 1797. While the internet claims there are no famous people buried here, there are many American patriots. During the summer of 2023, Ayana, the boys, and I came here in search of Anastasia and James Fulton, of whom our relations are from their son Daniel Ashbury, to Lucy Wisnut, to Sally Kennedy, to Cora Peeler, to P.A. Peeler, to Clarence Peeler, and finally to my mother. As of today, James and Anastasia are as far back as I can go and still find a grave location. James Fulton was born of Catherine Sparburn Fulton, 1729 to 1765, and Robert Fulton, 1730 to 1781, both of whom were born in Bordertown, New Jersey. James's parents were married on October the 4th of 1756. James's father Robert passed at the age of 51, and his mother Catherine at the age of 36, possibly at James's birth. James himself was described on his tombstone as a patriot of 1776. On October 23rd of 1833, a then 68-year-old James appeared in court in front of the Honorable Isaiah Evans. During this encounter, James declared his birth in Bordertown, New Jersey, which he learned from his father's Bible. James then stated he was drafted as a private into the militia under Captain Richard Waters and Colonel Adams of the 3rd Maryland Regiment. Later, he was attached to General Gist's brigade under George Washington, after which he marched to Georgetown, then to Annapolis, before marching to Yorktown. He stated that he arrived at Yorktown at the end of August or the 1st of September. There he remained, doing his part in the action which led to the glorious surrender of Cornwallis. After the Yorktown, James stated that he marched back to Annapolis, where he was discharged on the 3rd of December. After the war, James married and moved to South Carolina, and as a result had little proof of his service. During this court hearing, James submitted the following names as witnesses to his service: Aquila Dyson, Captain Gray, General Staburn, and Washington. During this investigation for pension, James's name was found on the militia payroll, which proved the day that he was discharged, and upon that day he received 16 pounds and 10 shillings. As previously mentioned, after the war, James married. On May 27th of 1787, he wed Anastasia Toole in Montgomery Village, Maryland, before they moved to South Carolina. While living in South Carolina, the couple welcomed their first child, Ezekiel, in 1791. Unfortunately, he was sick for most of his life and eventually passed away at the age of 25 without a wife or heirs. In 1793, Elila was born. She grew up to marry Richard Featherston and mothered 6 children, one of which was Lieutenant Daniel Featherston, who was killed in Gettysburg as a part of the Mississippi regiment that took part in Pickett's charge. Unfortunately, he too passed away without a wife or heirs. Interestingly, Elila was the first recipient of the Daughters of the American Revolution marker in North Carolina. In 1795, Horatio was born. He married Abigail Ann James Fulton, and together they had 3 children. In 1798, Theodore was born, and while we are unsure of who his wife was, he had 4 children. Then, finally, in 1801, James and Anastasia welcomed their last child, Daniel Ashbury. He married Elizabeth Blaylock, and they had 4 children. Today, James and Anastasia's descendants have many surnames, including Heath, Miller, Crawford, Moses, McGill, Arrowwood, Whiteside, Gibson, Shepherd, Bird, and Bradley, just to name a few. While James's lineage cannot be further explored, you can quickly get overwhelmed with Anastasia's. I did find a source that stated that Anastasia's father, William Tulp, was a 15-degree relative of Julia Howe, the author of Battle Hymn of the Republic, and a cousin of Francis Marion. This source also stated that William Tulp was an 11-degree relative of King Henry VIII of England. While I rarely go back beyond the Revolutionary War, this caused me to get way over my head, studying people that may or may not be related to us. However, after doing so, I have concluded that if we are related to royalty, it is more likely through Anastasia's mother, Rachel Offutt. This is because the Offutt lineage is quite notable in European history. In its original form, the surname Offutt was offered, which took several forms over time. This surname can originally be found in a census taken after the 1066 Battle of Hastings. This is when England's rule changed hands. Some believe Rachel Offutt to be linked to the Offutt family mentioned in several historical documents, in which the family received land and grand estates from William, Duke of Normandy, which may suggest a family connection. In the 12th century, much of the Offutt family moved to Scotland, following Earl David of Huntingdon, who would later become king there. Over time, religious conflicts caused some of the Offutt family to come back to England during the Great Puritan Migration. Then later, during the 17th century, as the religious conflicts continued to rage on, some of the Offutt family moved to Ireland and others to the New World. One of these Offutts who came to America was William Offutt, 1670 to 1734. He was born in London, England, of either Thomas Offutt Jr. or John Offutt. Regardless, a great deal is known about William as an adult. While he was not considered a gentleman, he was a yeoman planter who, over a lifetime, became a leader and accumulated a large amount of land. In 1694, he married the notable Mary Brock, 1676 to 1748. She was the daughter of Captain Edward Brock and Elizabeth Audley. I will also note that Edward's lineage can be traced back to his parents, John and Marie Hamilton Brock, and his grandparents, Walter and Janet Bryson Brock of Glasgow, Scotland. Mary's father, Captain Brock, owned great lands, including Brock Hall, which was often assaulted by northern Indians. Interestingly, in the book Captains and Mariners of Early Maryland, on page 364, it reads, "There came a great party of Indians, about 150 of them, to the house of Edward Brock, which Indians did much damage in berating open his 2 hogsheads of tobacco. 3 great hogs were killed, and having taken away about 60 barrels of corn out of his loft, and about 3 barrels of corn out of the field, and made several attempts to have broke into his house and robbed him. And the Indians lay sore upon Brock from 12 o'clock on the 10th day until 9 o'clock on the 11th day." Luckily, to help prove our family's connection, in Edward's will he mentions his daughter Mary and his son-in-law William, and gives them part of Brock Hall on the north side of Brock Branch. Edward also makes his son-in-law William executor of his will before he passes on June 19th of 1714. Edward was about 60 and passed away in Prince George County, Maryland. William Offutt and Mary Brock were staunch Loyalists and Presbyterians in a time in which the Presbyterian Church was the Church of England. During William's life, he lived to see many monarchs reign, including William the Orange, Queen Anne, King George I, and King George II. It is believed that this had great influence over him and his life, even in Maryland. In addition, William's land did not stop growing with Brock Hall. He acquired many more tracts of land, more than I can even dare to mention. These lands were located throughout the Potomac and some of what is now Washington, D.C. During his life, William was also among the original trustees of the First Presbyterian Church. Other trustees included that of Alexander Beale and James Beale. During their marriage, William and Mary had many children, including James, Edward, William, Thomas, John, Mary, Sarah, a younger Thomas, Jane, and Nathaniel. Many of their children stayed and became important members in the growing state of Maryland. However, over time, many relatives migrated elsewhere, following the tides of migration. Our direct descendant is William and Mary's eldest son, James, who was born in 1696 and stayed in Maryland. Interestingly, as a 14-year-old, James lived with his maternal grandfather, Captain Brock. In 1725, James married Rachel Beale. It is believed that while married, they had 6 children. Of James and Rachel's many children, our direct descendant is their daughter, Rachel. In 1734, when James's father, William, passed, James was only given £5, as the will stated he had already been provided for. I also believe that Rachel may have received a gold ring. Tragically, in 1740, James's wife, Rachel, passed, in the same year of which our Rachel was born. During that year or the next, James did remarry to Sarah Beale, daughter of James and Verlinda Beale. It is believed that James's first wife, Rachel, may have been a relative of his second wife, but that remains unknown. When Sarah's father, James, passed away on May 18th of 1742, he gave her 200 acres, known as the New Dumfries. Then, in 1748, when James's mother Mary passed away, she left him 5 pounds of sterling money. During James and Sarah's marriage, James became Justice of the Peace and a member of the First Convention in Montgomery County. 1750, when James passed, he left his daughter Rachel slaves of an unknown number and gave Elizabeth Lewis a gold ring which I believe may have belonged to his first wife. While little is known about James's daughter Rachel's life, we do know that in 1761 she married William Toole, and that together they had at least 6 children, one of whom was born on October the 9th of 1763 and named Anastasia. When Anastasia was 14, her father was killed in action during the Battle of Germantown on October the 4th, 1777. He was 39 years old. Unfortunately, regardless of knowing all of this, I am still unsure of where he is buried. On a happier note, regardless of the Offutt reputation as loyalist, in 1788, 19 Offutt men signed an oath of allegiance to support the Revolutionary War. After Anastasia's father, William Toole, passed, her mother did have a chance to remarry to Joseph Bennett II in 1783 in Montgomery, Maryland. Unfortunately for Anastasia's mother, Rachel, the marriage only lasted 5 years as she passed away in 1787. In conclusion, after much more research, I have also found a source on Wikitree which states that Anastasia is a 10th degree relative of Daniel Boone, a 17th degree relative of John Adams, and a 12th degree relative of Davy Crockett. However, I believe this as much as the other claim, and while I find them to be outlandishly false, it is fun to consider it being truth. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, and as always, thanks for watching.